Hey art nerds, I have a bright and sunny sunflower drawing tutorial for you guys today. This is part of my How to Draw Flowers mini-series. I hope you guys are enjoying it. This is the reference image that I'm using. I'll pop a link down in the description below to the original source for those of you who would like to draw along. The materials we're going to be using for today's tutorial are fairly simple. We have a watercolor sketchbook, we have a mechanical pencil, and we're going to be using a Sakura Pigma FB brush pen. And I'll have links down in the description below to all of those things. So let me just demonstrate them just a little bitty bit right here. You guys also get a sneak peek, or rather a retroactive peek, at some of the other flowers we've drawn recently. So we're starting with the very center of our sunflower. We're drawing a circle, kind of an oblong egg shape to indicate that. And then around that we're drawing a larger ring. That's indicating our petals. We also sketched in the stem and we sketched in an oval shape indicating the sunflower bud that I would also like to draw in this tutorial. So we're going to draw another smaller circle in the center, because if you look at sunflower reference, you'll notice that often it has kind of a double ring going on. And then we're going to start sketching in or placing our key petals. And this is a concept I've talked about in a lot of the other How to Draw Flower posts, but this is basically the most important petals, the petals that are going to be overlapping other petals, the petals that are going to need to have the most detail. Now that we have those key petals sketched in, or rather the indicated, we're going to go ahead and sketch them in. Sunflower petals are kind of a teardrop shape, and they don't come to a point as they enter the sunflower itself. They kind of still have, like, they don't touch, basically. My brain will not let me know how to say that a little bit better. And as I'm going, I'm adding in more petals and I'm filling it in. And then when I ink it, I'm going to add in even more petals. So the reason we are inking this, and we're inking it with a waterproof ink, is I have a follow-up series on how to paint these flowers coming up. I hope you guys will join me for that. I'm really looking forward to it because I really love drawing and painting flowers. You guys might also notice that I sketched in our sunflower bud in kind of a tuna can shape, so a very short, fat cylinder. Speaking of, if you guys are interested in learning how to draw just about anything, I have several tutorials here on the channel on volumetric drawing, and this is the key to literally drawing anything you can imagine. I'll link it down in the description below. I would love it if you guys would check it out. It is an all ages video, so it's great for older folks who never got that art education that they may have wanted, and younger folks who are just learning how to draw. So I went ahead and I drew teardrop. They're not really petals, they're the sepals of the flower. I drew those around our bud. And next we can start inking. So with the sunflower, most of the detail we're going to be drawing is in very small hatch marks, and we're going to do that in ink. So I'm starting out by inking our petals. And what's interesting about some of these sunflower petals, if you look at the references, some of them have kind of like double backed and curled in on themselves, and that's something I really want to make sure I capture, since that's kind of a big part of the sunflower aesthetic. I'm also using very, very small hatch marks just to kind of draw the center of the sunflower. So what's neat about sunflowers, and I know crime pays but botany doesn't, could tell you way more about sunflowers, so I highly recommend you check out his YouTube channel. But they're in the Asteraceae family, so they're related to daisies, they're related to asters, they're related to echinacea. And they are multiple flowers. They're composite flowers. So all those little hair-like things you see that becomes the sunflower seeds later on in the sunflower's life, those are all teeny tiny flowers. And then the ring of petals surrounds all those teeny tiny flowers. How cool and a little bit creepy if you've got tryptophobia is that. It triggers my tryptophobia. So while I love sunflowers, I'm also a little squicked out by them. So now I'm going to draw the beautiful sunflower bud, that large, beautiful baby, since it's overlapping our sunflower, and I'm drawing the sepals that surround the petals and the sunflower head itself. And you guys see me going back in with my mechanical pencil to add a little bit more detail as I go. This is a technique that's been really beneficial for me to kind of keep my details to a minimum ink, and then go in and add more details as I want. So if you look at reference of just sunflower buds, which I had to do for this, you'll notice you can see those petals kind of curling in on themselves towards the center of our composite flower. So that's something I wanted to capture. If you guys have ever looked at a mum flower, it's very similar to that. Alright, so we have our sunflower bud drawn. Now let's move back to our sunflower in full bloom. So you guys noticed I used these kind of little delicate hatch marks, very similar to how I draw fur. And I'm going to start drawing in, inking in some of the petals that are overlapping on top of that. So in some of our other how to draw flower videos, we've talked a lot about kind of an order of operations and overlapping and using overlapping and using that to help dictate when we draw things and definitely when we ink things. And I'm trying to do, or I have managed to draw, how many flowers are we at now? 12 plus 3 plus another 1, 16 flowers without having to use whiteout once. So that's where the order of operations is really important for me. It really means I don't have to go in and make corrections if I just think kind of strategically about my inking, And I'm just going to kind of do the key petals first. So the petals that overlap all the other petals, or the petals that have very important features that I want to make sure I capture. And then I'm going to do some of the background petals. And you guys see I'm using some very fine curved lines kind of towards the bottom and the center of the petals. And that's to give an idea of volume. It's also to create some contrast and visual interest. And it's also to give the viewer a sense of the form of the sunflower petals. So for some of the petals on the second row, I apply a heavier layer of line art, creating a bit of a cast shadow. And I'm also kind of varying the mark making I'm using in this one. So I'm not relying so much on pulling lines to describe my forms for the sunflower. I'm relying more on creating marks that represent what I'm seeing in our reference. And this is particularly important in the center of the sunflower because we kind of have 3 distinct zones with 3 distinct marks. So for the center, I'm using these really tiny chevron shapes, and they're basically radiating with the tips pointing into the center. So rather than just like chevron, 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 like lines of chevrons, like a mass tone or a mass fill, I have them in a radial pattern going around the center of the sunflower, but they're so super tiny, you can't see them very well. So if you just want to use dots for that, it would probably work. Then I'm also using kind of like that fur pattern, and then mixing in with that a heavier single mark or single and double mark towards the center and then towards the far exterior rim of our sunflower center. You guys will see what I'm talking about in a second. So something like this. And you should use your discretion. You should use your own taste and decide how you want to render the center of the sunflower. This is just how I went about doing it. But really, it's about finding your own voice and finding your own way to show people how you see the world. That's one of the things I love about drawing and I love about creating comics is it's all about sharing my perspective with other people. And as somebody who grew up with ADHD and still has ADHD, I often feel like I cannot explain how I see the world to others. So using art to show others how I see the world has been a really important tool for communication. So shout out to my fellow ADHD friendos who also have ADHD or who are also artists or thinking about becoming artists. It can be a wonderful tool and can really open up expression for you in a way that you may have struggled with in the past. So now that I have my center fully inked, I'm working on the petals that are on the far side of our sunflower. And kind of like when we did the passion flower, it's not necessarily difficult. It just requires some patience. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with the art. Art takes time, and art takes the time it's going to take. And speaking of time, this video has been time-lapsed by about 2. So this is about twice as fast as I drew and inked it. So please do not hold yourself to this crazy time-lapse standard. I draw kind of fast just in general. It comes from years of practice and also going to art school where there's a lot of pressure to draw fast. And I want to make sure not to pressure you guys into thinking that is necessary. Sometimes slowing down and taking your time really brings more to the table than speeding through things. So our sunflower is just about done. I'm just adding a few details here and there. I hope you guys enjoyed this installment of our How to Draw Flowers series. It is part of a playlist. I recommend you check out some of the other videos in it, and I hope I will see you guys again in another drawing video.